No one understands loss quite like Spider-Man. For all his ups, he has had an immeasurable amount of downs, and that seems to be a universal expectation, at least when it comes to his origin story across the multiversal board, too. Welcome back, Nerd Squad. It's me, Amanda. Today we're counting down the top 10 darkest Spider-Man moments. What moments do you think have been some of Spider-Man's greatest lows? Let us know in the comments. Let us know down below. Number 10. Sins Past. One of the darkest Spider-Man moments to date that continues to haunt my personal nightmares is the revelation that came from Sins Past. This story starts in Amazing Spider-Man issue 509. During one of the worst flashbacks in comic book history, we learn that Gwen Stacy had an affair with Norman freaking Osborn, which resulted in a pregnancy. Gwen gave birth to twins, and their existence was forever kept secret from Peter Parker. Osborn raised the two children to hate Spider-Man, making them believe that Spider-Man was their father and that he killed their mother, when in reality, Osborn was their father, and although I guess kinda debatable, I think we could still argue that Green Goblin is much more to blame for Gwen's death than Peter is. This whole story was an extra level of dark and twisted that makes it both unforgettable and at the same time something you wish you could forget. But alas. Fortunately, it was retconned during Nick Spencer's run on Spider-Man, but it still represents a super big low for me and a terrifying point in Spider-Man's history. When we thought this was true. Also, Peter's reaction. No. And friends, before we move on to our next spot on this list, if you love what we do here at Top 10 Nerd, be sure to show us you love us by clicking that like button. Seriously, feed the algorithm. Praise be the algorithm. Number 9. Loss of Iron Man. In the Marvel Cinematic Universe, something that hit Peter really hard was the death of Tony Stark. Initially, it had been Spider-Man himself who had perished during the snap, when Thanos kills basically half the universe using the Infinity Gauntlet. Peter was part of the 50% who lost their lives and seemingly got straight up dusted. He would return when Hulk used the Infinity Stones to bring everyone back 5 years later, but Iron Man would be forced to use them one more time to eliminate the past version of Thanos and his army. As Tony Stark is ultimately just a really smart human man, using the Infinity Stones to do something so great and so extreme not only took all of his energy, draining him, but ultimately cost him his life as well, completely depleting Tony. So he's completely out of the story now, at least for now. It's comics, so still anyone could come back at any time. This gave us a heartbreaking scene between Tom Holland's Spider-Man and Robert Downey Jr.'s Iron Man, where the two heroes once more were forced to say goodbye to one another near the end of Avengers Endgame. But with their roles reversed from Avengers Infinity War. You see what they did there? With Spider-Man being forced to say goodbye to his mentor as he passed on. Number 8. One More Day. After years of history and continuity, years of hurt and trauma and love and will they, won't they in terms of Peter and MJ getting together and even staying together, all of the love and turmoil between them was lost with one silly little deal that was made with Mephisto. Such a silly deal. In exchange for Aunt May's life, MJ and Peter decided to sacrifice their marriage to Mephisto, who wanted it because he basically is a weirdo who is maybe prophetically threatened by the potential offspring of Peter and MJ for some reason. Because it's been implied before that, like, if they basically have a child, that child can destroy Mephisto. I don't know. This story is titled One More Day, but for many MJ and Spider-Man shippers out there, it feels like it should be titled Worst Day Ever. Number 7. MJ and Peter break up. Again! As if it wasn't bad enough that MJ and Peter had their marriage erased years before, lately, in the last few years of the comics with Nick Spencer's run on Spider-Man, it seemed like we were building to have these two actually reunite. Yet shortly after they had ended up back together after years of being apart, following the complete erasure of their marriage, they were broken up again. And this happened as well after Peter was even considering popping the question to MJ. And to add insult to injury here, Peter also is greatly struggling in his personal life currently in the comics, while MJ is thriving and happy in a relationship with somebody else. I mean, hey, I'm happy for MJ, but honestly, poor Peter. It's just, why? Why can't these two be together? Just let it happen, Marvel. Just let it happen. Number 6. Creating monsters. It's hard being Spider-Man, not just in terms of all the heroics or all the people he has to save, all the responsibility he has as a hero, and even not just in terms of his own personal trauma and struggles. But one of the hardest things about being Spider-Man is the balance between the two worlds of Peter's civilian life and his heroic life as Spider-Man. It's a dangerous lifestyle being a vigilante, and either Peter Parker is often forced to lie to people in order to protect them, or to tell them them the truth, but, putting them potentially at great risk. That is pretty much what happened with Carly Cooper, Peter's one-time girlfriend, who all in all was quite a capable person, being a forensic specialist with the NYPD. Carly ended up being kidnapped by the Green Goblin, and after refusing to reveal what she knew about Spider-Man's true identity, was turned into a goblin herself with the Goblin Serum. She took up the name Monster for a while, and even after she was returned to her normal human self, was forced to leave New York in the end to create some distance between her and Peter after her traumatic experience. Number 5. Chasm. Chasm was once the hero Spider-Man, aka Ben Reilly. During the Beyond event, he ended up losing all his memories, or a lot of his formative memories you could say, and as such was sent down a dark path to becoming the villain known as Chasm, struggling to determine right from wrong since he'd lost all those formative memories during the event. He's called Chasm because the memories left a hole in his mind. It's like a chasm, you see. Number 4. Reign. This alternate reality and its Spider-Man story involves an old senile Spider-Man who lost Mary Jane to cancer years earlier, which he discovers his own radioactivity actually caused. He has retired from being Spider-Man and now owns a flower shop, but hallucinations and incessant injustices cause him to attempt to return to a life of heroics once more. However, Spider-Man is now an old, deranged kind of man, and as such this story mostly involves him getting his butt kicked in between hallucinations of Mary Jane's ghost and rotting corpse. In the end, he does prevail, but not without us exploring the depth of his loss and his heartache. I think one of the darkest moments is when Spider-Man envisions Mary Jane's corpse emerging from her grave and entwining Spider-Man once more in her limbs, seemingly both kind of like embracing him, while also kind of like reprimanding him and accusing him of sort of causing her own death, which is kind of true. Although in the end, Mary Jane reveals even more tragically that she was always rooting for Peter, even with her dying breath, which also just makes this moment real sad. Number 3. Peter's ultimate death. While this death did not occur in the main continuity, it still represents one of the darkest moments in terms of Spider-Man's story, or at least one version of his story. We're talking about Peter's death in Into the Spider-Verse. This reality in the animated universe is still seemingly considered Earth 1610, which we know in the comics as the Ultimate Universe, though it does differ from the comic book version of Earth 1610. In this Earth 1610, Miles Morales also resides, though his Peter is somewhat different from his Ultimate comic book counterpart in terms of his story, and I would say his appearance. Peter Parker, who is blonde, dies during a fight with Kingpin here. His death is heartbreaking, not just for Miles, who now finds himself the only surviving Spider-Man in his reality, alone again after finding someone who he thought might actually be able to mentor him, but Peter's death here is also heartbreaking for his girlfriend Mary Jane, who only after his death reveals his secret identity to the world, and of course is super devastating for all of New York, and possibly I would say all of planet Earth, who knew him as their friendly neighborhood hero. Number 2. Revelations. As if MJ and Peter seemingly losing their chance at becoming a happy family wasn't enough, there was also the story and moment where we, the readers, learned the truth of what happened to Mary Jane and Peter Parker's seemingly unborn child, with it being revealed that their offspring was taken by none other than Norman Osborn for some insidious plot that, well, still has yet to be really revealed, even after like more than 20 years I believe it's been. We were led to believe the baby was spirited away by a woman working for Osborn, Allison Mongrain, and was perhaps still alive even years later. However, Norman would then go on to claim the child had been permanently eliminated on his order. Allison Mongrain slipped something into Mary Jane's food at a restaurant, causing her to go into early labor, and then disguised herself as a nurse and intercepted the newborn. Mary Jane was told her child did not make it, and this whole plot was honestly super messed up, and I still don't even really fully understand what's going on with it. This is seriously messed up even for someone as dastardly as Norman, to be honest. Number 1. On repeat. One of the darkest moments in all of Spider-Man comics doesn't even come from Peter Parker's time as Spider-Man, but instead is tied to another hero to wear the mantle, his clone, Ben Reilly. Ben Reilly at one point is caught in a loop, being killed on repeat by the Jackal as part of his wild experiments, and then brought back only to perish again. This experience would greatly affect Ben and is believed to be the catalyst for what drove him to become a villain himself initially, with him eventually becoming the new Jackal. I mean, now he's Chasm, but before he was Jackal. He just keeps having these sad villain loops. It's really tragic, actually. That's about it. I'll see you next time, but until then, you stay nerdy, YouTube.